Hey everybody, and welcome to the 4th of July edition of the Food Plotters Journal podcast. My name is Randy VanderVeen of Strategic Habitat, and in this third podcast episode, I'm joined by my co-host John Komp of Northwoods Whitetail Food Plot Seed Company. This episode was recorded a few days ago while I was on the road outside my home state of Michigan, visiting the hunting property of a landowner over in Wisconsin. But we're down to less than 3 months away from opening day of bow season, if you can believe it, and less than 2 months away from wrapping up our habitat work for the year. Man, where has 2019 gone so far? Anyway, in this episode, John and I talk about some germination issues that some landowners are having with this wet weather, especially when it comes to their sorghum plot screen and how to deal with it. We also talk about how to deal with 4 to 5 foot rye in food plots. When should you mow it or spray it or crimp it if you happen to have a roller crimper? We also touch on when to mow your clover plots and how often during the summer just to keep the weeds down. Then we get into broadcasting mineral supplements as fertilizer on our food plots, and does it actually benefit deer more than a small mineral site on a stump or on the ground? I share the type of mineral I use and the simple test results I've done and where to get it. So with that said, let's get right into the call with John.
Hey, how you doing tonight, John?
Great, Randy. How you doing?
Real good. Good. Hey, I see that you're once again you're getting rained on right now, huh?
Yeah, it held off for about a week and got really hot. It was actually bumping 90 up here, and
Wow.
now we've got another storm blowing through. So all the stuff we planted our screen finally 2 days ago, late as I've ever planted a screen, and we got some rain. So I'm anxious to see 8 to 10 days from now.
Yeah. Have you been getting any issues from people, having some struggles with any screens this year so far because of all the rain?
Yeah, we've had probably a dozen guys message us, call us, contact us with some failures, and it's very unfortunate spring this year for not just our screen, but just about anything guys are trying to grow right now. We drove, I think 2 weeks ago, we drove from here in Upper Michigan over to Minnesota, down through Iowa, back through Wisconsin and home. And the corn either A, looked pathetic for this time of year, or B, wasn't even planted.
A lot of weedy fields out there, isn't there?
Well, it's been really bad. So anyway, yeah, back to the screen though. Yeah, that's been a kind of a sore spot this year for us. We've been running germ tests. I think we're up to 7 now on every batch we've sold, and everything we've seen has been over 90% germination. It's not the seed. It's just not, this weather's just been terrible. It's either too wet, too cold. I know 2 weeks ago, or I thought it was like, I want to think around June 8th or June 9th, we had frost up here.
Are you serious? You had frost?
Yeah.
That's unreal. You're just not too far north of Green Bay.
No, we're not. We're 4 miles north of Green Bay. We had frost on, I want to say the 8th or the 9th or the 10th. And I started looking at weather for the rest of Michigan, and there was frost warnings throughout most of the upper portion of lower Michigan. But just because a lot of guys didn't have frost in the southern half of Michigan doesn't mean that, that 40 degree or 38 degree night didn't hurt or kill their screen. And I firmly believe that's what happened. So it's just been too cold. And now we think we've got the soil temperature, nighttime temps. Looking at the 10-day forecast, I don't see any night below, I think, 58 degrees. Highs are 85, and that's just up here. As the further south you get, the better it gets. So I think we're out of the bad timing for as far as cold weather goes. But the ground's so saturated. We've talked a lot of guys out of buying the screen and had them try Egyptian wheat instead. The Egyptian wheat seems to take the wet ground a little bit better, not much. From what we've seen, this particular strain that we have just does not like a real heavy wet ground, and it's it's tough to get away from this year.
And so doesn't the Egyptian wheat also have a shorter growing window than the plot screen?
Yeah.
Than the sorghum?
Yeah, they're both killed by frost, and then the Egyptian wheat actually will develop some sort of a seed head, but I don't think it becomes viable because we're so far north. It just gets too cold too quick. And then as far as our screen goes, I don't think, maybe once I've seen something that resembled a seed head, because what's it called? Photo period sensitive. The shorter the day gets, there's a certain amount of time, and I don't know the exact number, but let's say it's like 10 hours, 5 minutes, 42 seconds. The sorghum says, oh, it's time to start building or making a seed head. Well, now it starts to think about a seed head. Well, that particular time frame here in Upper Michigan or you're in northern Midwest, it's mid to late September. Well, you're weeks away from a frost. So by the time it starts thinking about putting the seed head on, the frost kills it. So that's why, that's one of the things we like about this. It doesn't have that big seed head on it. But yeah, the Egyptian wheat seems to take a little bit wetter soil. It might be a little bit more cold tolerant than this is, but not much. We're asking plants up here to do things they were never intended to do. So, but we've got them to grow before, and we'll get them to grow again. And it's just, it's just one of those springs, Randy, that even soybeans. I saw our neighbor farmer down the road just planted their soybeans 3 days ago, and I'm sure they're a very, very fast maturing soybean. I've seen farmer on the way to one of our properties just pulled his plow into the cornfield. We're a month behind. I can't imagine you guys are much different down there.
No, well, you say down there, but funny thing is, John, normally when we talk, you're on one side of the lake and I'm on the other side of the lake. But
sure.
The reason I know it's raining at your place right now is because I just got wet from the same storm because I'm about 150 miles west of you.
Yeah, and so I would imagine you're not getting too much different weather than we're getting up here. So
yeah, so you said you got about a 90% germination rate. So what's your favorite method for doing a germination test?
What we do is we'll take paper towel and I try to count out 100 seeds, but sometimes that gets kind of mind-boggling with the little tiny seeds. But we'll use our screen, for instance. We'll take 100 seeds or so and wrap them up in the paper towel, dip them in water, just get the paper towel moist, and then we'll put it in a glass and stick it in the windowsill and check it after 8 to 10 days, and then we'll put a little more paper or water on it and check it again at 14. And when we were getting these reports of failures, that was one of them I was checking every day, and you could actually see it within 24 hours. They were starting to break the seed coating, the shell. You could see they were starting already. So this is a real quick germinating seed. But keep in mind, it's 68, 72 degrees in the house, and it's sitting in the sun. So I would imagine it's even warmer in that glass jar. So you might be 80 or 90 degrees, but germinates rather quickly. But so anyway, that's the way we like to do our germ tests. I mean, we'll do our clovers, our brassicas. I mean, when these products are developed, the original producer of the seed will do a germ test, and then they ship it to one of our suppliers who has a germ test done, and then we'll do a germ test. And this isn't something we're pulling off the shelf from a year or 2 or 3 or this is an old seed. This is fairly new seed, and it's been tested multiple times. So I think we've never ever seen anything less than, I think the worst I've ever seen was like an 85% germ test. So,
okay. And then so what you're doing then is after a couple of weeks is you're taking out the seeds out of that little piece of paper towel, and then you're just counting them out. And, so a 90% germination rate means that you've only got, out of 100 seeds, you only got 10 that did not germinate.
Right. And if you left them in there maybe a little bit longer, maybe a couple more of them would go. I mean, it's very, I've talked to quite a few producers of our products, 100% or 95%, and they've said that's very, very far and few between that they've ever seen something 98, 99%. And most of the time they'll err on the side of caution. Let's say they get 3 tests. One says 85, one says 90, one says 92. They'll label the seed tag at 85. It's better to err on the side of caution. So that's one thing I noticed on some of our seed tags for the Egyptian wheat and the screening. It was in the 85, but that's because of all the tests. Now, this is not my words. This is one of our producers' words, that because of the test, they err on the side of caution. They'll label it as 85, even though they did get 92. So, because every time I said, we're in the 90 percentile. Why are you guys labeling it so low? And he said, we do that. That's just the way they label them.
Yeah. And so, and that's for the fortunate guys that could even get their plots planted because, like I've got a couple of landowner clients in southern Michigan who I was on their property in April and, they had a little bit of water on the property. It's kind of a, wetter property anyway. And yeah, you needed some, rubber boots on, but it was just, basically just over your ankles walking through some of the wet areas that typically are wet in the spring. But just talking to those guys earlier this week, and they says, some of those areas that you can't, where they're planting food plots, you can't even walk through there because it's over top of your rubber boots. I'm going, man, wow. It's getting deeper as the summer goes on. It just won't stop raining. So
I can't remember who it was. Show me a picture of their lease. I think it was in Illinois, and they had an 80-acre lease maybe, and 80% of it was underwater. What do you do?
Wow. Yeah.
That's crazy.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's crazy. But, that's one of the reasons, we were talking about in the last one about planning to have a failure in something. And that's one of the reasons why we like to have at least 30 or 40%, whether it's red clover that we planted with our fall forage the previous year that's now growing extremely well, or we have a strip of white clover in our destination plots. A lot of that stuff, if you couldn't get in there, whether it's, your access road is pure muck and you'll bury whatever vehicle you're trying to get in there. That's one of the things we had a problem with this springs. We try to get into one of our food plots and just bury the vehicle. You just can't get in there. That clover's feeding these deer just fine. And I don't have to do anything except get a mower in there and that's it. We're still trying to plant some of our soil builder this weekend just because we're a month behind, but our white and red clovers are feeding the deer just fine.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I recommend, Stuart from Lake Effect Property Services, and I've been recommending his forestry mulcher to quite a few of my landowner clients that need, food plots carved out or, food plot hills created. And, obviously he hasn't been able to be on as many properties as he wanted to, but, he just recently got that 8-foot Genesis drill. And, he's just saying, man, it was just great timing this year to offer that, that drill for clients because, some of these guys, if he had gone in there disc or rotor till, there's no way that he could have gone in there and planted. But, because there's old vegetation there, and he sprayed it and it died and he's able to, run his tractor right over top of that vegetation without disturbing the ground and drilling, the seed in there. So it's been a great year for guys going no-till that are drilling,
Yeah, this year, typically what I'll do in the past is I'll go a night or two before and scratch up with the tiller and then go in and do the planting 2 or 3 days later. But it was raining just about every other day and I didn't dare because what happens with that tiller, and I would assume the disc is the same way. Let's say you till down 2 inches, you've got 2 inches of fluff there. Well, that's all where your water all gathers and just sits because the rest of it is a little bit harder and the ground's more dense and the water doesn't seep through. You basically got 2 inches of jello or pudding or just muck. And it takes forever to dry it. So, this year, minimal ground disturbance this spring, I think, seems to be working great.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, I noticed that you crimped your garden the other day, which, is, it's fenced off. And, when I was there, I don't know, it was maybe back in April or so, it was only, up to our ankles and whatnot. But that stuff was what, 3-4 feet tall the other day when you crimped it, was it?
Oh, we crimped it. There was some spots that was 7 feet tall. So
wow.
We did, and we're trying to figure out how to do this as feasible as possible. Okay. We want to make sure we can do this without going out and buying a 10 or 12, 30, whatever, $1,000 drill. Okay. Because most people can't do that or they won't do that. And I understand that. So let's try to figure out how we can do this as cheap as possible. But it is a garden. I'm not going to go in and spray Roundup because you can do this without a crimper. You can do it with spraying Roundup, but it's our garden. I'm not going to Roundup. So we did a third of our garden. I just went in and I tried to use the bag seeder. Well, that didn't work. I mean, you're trying to seed in 6-7 foot tall rye. That was kind of rough. So I went in there the old fashioned way, mixed. I had a 2-gallon bucket and I had sweet corn. I had inoculated beans. And now I'm not talking soybeans. I mean, this is our garden. So it was, green beans and peas, squash, pumpkins. And I stirred it all up together, radishes, carrots, you name it. And I was doing the best I can of walking and throwing it and trying to evenly disperse it. And I think I did a pretty decent job. So that stuff was thrown into the standing rye, and the vetch too. I was kind of bummed. I didn't think I had that much vetch in there. There's a lot of vetch in there. And then the rest of the garden, we crimped, and then on, I think it was a Thursday, and then we planted our garden on a Saturday because there was rain coming Saturday night. I'll tell you what, that was the fastest we have ever planted our garden. And the whole garden's planted. Usually we do about half of it because it's, you run. I don't want to do this because we got to weed this thing. And I'll tell you what, all we did was I had either me or my son or my wife went ahead and split the rye. And you know those little earthway seeders that look like a little tiny bike? It's basically, kind of like a no-till. Yeah, that's what we did. We just ran that and ran our seeds, and then somebody else went behind it and covered it back up. Within 2 days, I had beans up, green beans are up already where we did the broadcasting before we crimped. Yeah, that was, those are in the ground. They were laying there for 3 days, and then we crimped on top of it. Those are up already. There's some green beans up already. So I know this will work. I shouldn't say I know it because I haven't seen everything else yet, but I'm pretty sure this is going to work for food plots. I don't think you're going to see 6 or 7 foot tall rye just because there's going to be deer browse pressure, I would think, on it in the spring, and that's what kept it knocked back.
Right, but yours was fenced in, so the deer couldn't get to it. Yeah,
ours was fenced in, so that's the disclaimer on this. And unless you have like a 3, 4, 5 acre field of rye that the deer just can't, because once rye gets rolling, it's pretty tough to slow down. So, but I'm pretty impressed so far because usually, we got the 4th of July coming up, and that's when we're looking at weed in the garden. I can count on 2 hands the amount of weeds I see so far.
Yeah, it's because of all the biomass of the rye.
Right. Yep. So I really think there's something to this system, but we're gonna still stay with our 3-strip that we've been doing for years. But I'll tell you what, I'm thoroughly impressed. But I the jury's still out. I want to see how the garden does and how are we going to get a flush of weeds once that rye really lays flat. How is the vegetables going to do? And there's a lot of stuff in there that's going to resemble what you can put in a food plot. I think there's cauliflower in there and carrots that can resemble your brassicas, or there's some beets, radishes. There's obviously sweet corn and beans and peas, so that if you want to try to grow a food plot of beans and corn, this might be an option. This is one of the reasons we're looking at this, Randy, is because some of the properties we work on, we can't put Roundup or GMO crops in the food plot. And that's just landowners' wishes. So this is an option we're looking at down the road, not only for a garden, but for growing beans and corn in food plots without, using Roundup or sprays or stuff like that, because some of the landowners we work with are trying to get away from that. So, but if you could use, if you can spray, and again, I'm not against it. I'm just saying that those are the circumstances we're working with. If you could spray, I think you could do this with, I would probably try to have a cultipacker or a lawn roller. A cultipacker would probably work pretty good, and then spray the second you're done, or spray ahead of time. But that rye being so tall, I just don't know what kind of kill you're going to get with being so tall. I think you'd have to roll it flat first and then spray it. So, but it's just an experiment. I'm having fun with it, and just letting everybody know how it's working out.
Yeah. So, just to recap, so some of this stuff that you kind of ran through, it might have gone over somebody else's head. So just to recap it real quick. So, there's a lot of guys out there that say, man, I got rye that's, 4 or 5 feet tall. How in the heck do I get rid of this stuff? And obviously most guys don't have a crimper. And so, but most guys also don't have a fence around the plot like you do your garden. So I would say that, a lot of times it's not going to be 7 feet tall like you had in your garden.
No, not unless it's a really big food plot.
Right. Yeah, if it's really big, then it's going to outcompete deer. But anyway, I mean, if the rye is only, say, 4 to 5 feet tall, you could have used an earthway spreader, right? Bag spreader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of our food plots right now, the rye is about 4 feet tall, and you could walk through it. But it depends on, Randy, what you're trying to do, what your next, what the next planting is going to be. I mean, if you want to try to go in there with a summer planting and put your stuff down, let's see if it's beans or buckwheat or whatever you're going to do. It's too early for brassicas and stuff like that. You could do that. I think you could. We tried to drill. We took an old grain drill, and I could have done this with a broadcast bag because the grain drill wasn't penetrating the ground very deep, so the beans and the sugar beets didn't get set in. But I ran a grain drill through a really nice stand of rye and hairy vetch, and then ran the cultipacker right hooked up to the grain drill, and it laid the stuff down pretty nice. But I think I'm gonna have to go through it with the crimper because the rye just wasn't ready yet. It was a little stringy rather than it just didn't lay down very well. So we drilled it, and we're gonna let that stuff start popping, and then we're gonna crimp on top of it. But again, you could walk in there, broadcast it, and then as soon as you're done, go in with a sprayer, and then come back with 2 weeks later and the cultipacker and lay it down, or a roller, or whatever, drag a pallet. I had one client just had buckwheat come up, and all he did was he dragged a pallet and flattened it. So you're just to get that thatch down on top of the seed. And I think more and more people are talking about this. I think the more and more you're going to see a lot of folks go to this because it's inexpensive, and you don't need the big equipment. You can get by with, a four-wheeler, roller, cultipacker, sprayer. I really like our grain drill, but, a lot of guys don't have that. I like the crimper. A lot of guys don't have that. But, it's kind of, we're all trying to get the same result. We're just getting there different ways. Whatever you have. Some guys just have a backpack sprayer, and they're going to drag a pallet or a chain link fence with two guys, whatever it takes to get that stuff knocked on. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, once you spray that tall rye and it's dead, 10 days, 14 days later, I mean, some guys would just as soon mow it. I know there's a lot of guys that would just rather mow it because they don't have a cultipacker even, or a roller.
Yeah.
And, and if the stuff is just dead, you cut it down with a mower, cut it kind of low, you're still going to, be blowing that mulch on top of it to, protect it as a protective layer.
Yeah. One of the things you have to be careful with when you're mowing, especially if you're going to use a brush hog, is they have that chute out the back, and you run the mower to the ground. You're going to get one really thick, we call it windrow. Okay.
Right.
You definitely do not want that because it's like it's never going to dry out. If I'm going to do that route, we have to do our rye where our brassica planting is going to be. We're going to do that in the next 5 to 6 days because the rye is really starting to think about making seed. And I don't want it to because I don't want to deal with that rye when we're doing brassicas. I'll cut it at, and you have to be careful because you got the brush cutter up off the ground. And I'm not telling folks what to do. This is how we do it. Okay. I just get the brush cutter off the ground high enough to where I'm not getting that windrow. Okay. And it's hard to explain, but you don't want that big, heavy windrow. Even if you have to do a cutting this week and then come back 2 weeks later and do another cutting, maybe a little bit lower. That way you don't get that big, thick row of vegetation that you normally get with a brush cutter, a brush hog, that big mower that goes behind the tractor. And the other thing, the reason why we do that is because we've got clover growing, and it's doing okay in that rye. But once you cut that rye, the top of that rye off and get the sunlight down there, it just explodes, and then that's going to be tilled under for the brassicas, a month from now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you're exactly right about that windrow. So, back when I was in high school, I was in landscaping, and, I mowed more of my share of lawns than I care to remember, but a lot of times we would end up not being able to mow some lawns because it was wet. So we'd get there maybe 10 days later, and that was really long. And so, again, we would cut it and we would end up with those windrows. But what we would do to disperse it, and I mean, we would disperse it right away, and that would be to cross cut it. So, if we cut it north and south, then we come back and maybe raise the deck a little bit and then cut it east and west, and it would disperse everything. Or, like you said, you could cut it high the first time and then cross cut it the other way. Or you could even go the same direction and, offset your tire tracks a little bit and then raise that deck, and then you can disperse it that way. But yes, you're right, man. Those windrows and those clumps, that's definitely going to smother those seeds.
Yeah, Well, then you'd have to, try to get rid of that stuff and try to bury it. You're really tilling pretty deep. But yeah, we did our first clover mowings of the year a couple days ago, and we had to raise it up pretty high. You just, especially in Clover, you don't want that windrow. And we've got a mower coming that's specifically for doing that. That's the whole back of the mower is open, and it's got 3 blades on it. It resembles a lawnmower. So that's what we're going to use to do our Clover. We just modified it to sit a little higher than you would if you were cutting grass. The one thing right now, especially, you have to look for, if you're going to go do some rye mowing or oats or tall vegetation, you got to watch out for those little fawns. And that rye, we've got the stuff we've got to go do in a food plot, I think, is 4 feet tall. And every time we do this particular food plot, we always bump 2 or 3 fawns out of there. So I always I'll send my son ahead or my dad with a 4-wheeler and just ride slow, and all you're doing is just pushing the fawns, because they'll get up and run. If you darn near run them over with the 4-wheeler, but that way with the tractor, I can kind of concentrate on what we're doing and not have to worry about looking for fawns. I mean, even in the Clover that's a foot tall, you'd be surprised at how many fawns would bed down in that stuff and try to hide.
Yeah. So how many times are you mowing your Clover this year, John?
Well, I think this is our first. The one here at the house is almost ready for its second because of so much moisture, and it's, we keep it well fed and it's pretty quality stuff. So I typically mow my Clover, Randy, when I see 75% of the flowers. And there's a bunch of different ways we'll mow it. I mean, I'll like 90% of the guys out there riding lawnmowers set as high as it'll go. And I believe that's about 7 inches, maybe 6. That's probably as low as you want to go on a white ladino Clover, especially when you're starting to creep into the summer months where it could get hot. I probably would like to see it set at 8 inches, but it's what I have right now, And we also at some of the properties we use the brush hog, but that's up about 8 or 9 inches, and we try not to get the windrows, and we've been pretty good at that. But like I said, we got a mower now that's coming for the tractor. I actually took the wheels off of it and welded extensions on them, so I can just set it down on the ground, and it's right at 8 inches. So that's going to work out pretty nice. But there's so many theories and ideas on when to mow Clover. Obviously, if you're into July and August, sometimes in June when Mother Nature wasn't throwing these cold, wet Junes at us, and it gets hot, you got to pay attention to the 8 to 10, 14-day forecast. If it's going to be dry, you might want to hold off, because you take that Clover down 8 or 7 inches, and then you go 14, 18, 20 days without rain. You could set it back pretty bad. You could, you go a month without rain right after you cut it, you could hurt it pretty good.
And then you're inviting weeds to grow at the same time. Yeah, if you cut it and you put that Clover under stress like that and slow it down, that gives an opportunity for the weeds to jump.
Yeah, because it seems like a lot of the canopy's gone, and you got a lot of stems there, and all there's sunlight down there. Because when Clover's thick and lush, there's not much canopy. Nothing's going to grow underneath that. It's kind of like young. But so they're really, I don't have it set where I have to mow 4 times a year or I have to mow 3 times a year. I don't do that. I kind of let the Clover plot tell me, okay, we're 75% flowered out, and ours is all white ladino Clovers. We don't have any reds or anything like that in our Clover blend. So I'm looking at those white flowers. Yep, okay. So we'll go in there and mow it. I'll also let the weather dictate whether I'm going to mow it or not. I just don't. And that's what I've done we've been growing Clover for, I want to say 12 or 13 years, and I've always done it that way. And is it the best way? I don't know, maybe. Can I get a little more nutrition if I let it grow or I cut it at this? Maybe. I don't know. But, like most folks, I've got a pretty busy summer with kids and, the business and everything else in life. And if I can sneak in 2 hours to go mow my Clover today, rather than wait 3 more days to get, 2% more protein or whatever, you know what, I'm going to go tonight, because, that's just the way life is. You have to take, if I had the time and I could measure the nutrition of my Clover plots, and I'm going to cut it here because the deer are going to get this and that and the other thing. Hey, that's great. Awesome. But like I said, most folks are so busy, a lot of we call them weekend warriors. They're at their camp. You know what? I see a lot of flowers on this thing. I'm buzzing the Clover today. And it's been that way for a long time, and it's going to be that way for a long time. Just kind of watch the weather, keep it at 6 to 8 inches, 8 inches preferably when you cut it, and try not to dump as much of that clippings to where you're going to smother the clover.
Yeah, there's really no good cookie cutter way that one size fits all. And I think some guys get a little bit hung up on what they read. It's like, well, everybody seems to mow their clover 3 or 4 times a year, and it's like, well, other people got different types of soil, they got different types of clover growing, and so everything is site specific. And so, instead of just overthinking it, hey, like you said, when you see those flowers, just buzz them down, and control those weeds, and don't do it before a drought, that type of thing. And like you said, you don't know if it's the right way to do it, but it works for you. And so, to me, that's just the smart way to go.
And that's the thing. You go online and you ask a question, and I think I saw this question posted a week or 2 ago. When's the best time to cut clover? There was 45 individuals who had a method that worked for them. Just like we've got a method that works for us. But you hit the nail on the head. Soil type, clover type, what's in your clover? If you've got some reds in there, they might grow taller faster than the white. If you've got alfalfa mixed in, that I believe grows taller than our white. So there's so many variables that my answer is mow when you can. And if it's 12 inches tall and it's got a lot of flowers, knock it down as long as there's rain coming.
Yeah, exactly. So have you put minerals on your plots at all? I mean, like for instance, your garden. Are you going to put any minerals on there, John, besides, any fertilizer that you normally add?
No, this is going to be 100% run off the soil. We've done the Redmond number 10 fines out on some of the properties. We've recommended to many folks. I think Jake was the one that got me started with this. Then you guys did this a bunch, didn't you?
Yeah, we both. I think we both heard about it from Jim Ward, and so we both started using it the same year. And I tried mine on my sandy plots in Lake County, and I did half the plot. Yeah, I mean it was night and day difference.
Can you describe to folks what we're talking about now when we say minerals on a food plot? We're not talking about running down a Tractor Supply or your local co-op with a bag of cow minerals or cow. Can you describe what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So this is from Redmond Mineral, and if somebody wanted to Google it, it would be actually if you Googled Redmond agriculture, and then look for the number 10 fine, because this Redmond Mineral comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes. It comes in chunks, and then some guys are probably most familiar with the trophy rock. And that's the exact same thing. It comes from the exact same mines that only is located one place on the earth, and that's in Utah. And so it's got 60 different trace minerals in it, and it's actually about the same composition as what's in our blood. And so farmers have found out that their animals and their livestock do much better when they supplement the diet of their livestock, this Redmond mineral, number 10 fine. And so they just do much better. I actually bought my Redmond mineral bags from a farmer up in Morley, and he just swears by this stuff. He had a veterinarian having to come over and take care of his cows and his sheep and all that stuff. And once he started feeding them the Redmond mineral, he was having a lot less issues with his livestock. So he was actually saving money by using this stuff. But anyway, it's kind of like a sandy composition to it, but it kind of cakes up in a fertilizer spreader. So you've got to really be able to have one of those spinners in the bottom of your spreader if you're going to use a fertilizer spreader, and you're going to want to put the gate opening pretty high, because if it's at all moist, it won't run through a fertilizer spreader very well. I found that using a fertilizer spreader like you do on your lawn that's on wheels actually works better than, say, an earthway. And an earthway bag spreader, I mean, that mineral could almost cake up that earthway and really get it all caked up inside and kind of get it all sticky and whatnot, if it gets wet. So I did that once. I'm never doing that again. So I have a totally separate spreader that I use just for Redmond Mineral.
Now,
spread that well.
So folks don't get confused. We're not talking about creating a mineral lick, a mineral site. talking about this number 10 fine, very fine mineral spread out on your perennial food plots. Your
fertilizer.
Just like fertilizer, but it's, here in Michigan, there's a ban now. Okay, especially in the Lower Peninsula, you can't do any kind of baiting, and salt is written in the book, is included. But what we're doing is we're feeding the deer mineral through the food plots. Correct?
Yep, exactly. And tests have shown, and I don't know if this was done on deer or on livestock, but animals respond better to minerals if they can uptake it through the plant rather than just licking it off a stump.
Right.
It's like their body can benefit better from it if it comes through the plant. So you put it on the ground, and it benefits the plants. Plants uptake it, the deer eat it, and it actually does it better for the deer that way. So its stuff is not expensive at all. I mean, I think I got 10 bags, $10 a piece. I mean, shoot, those things are 50 pounds a piece. I got 500 pounds for like $100. So it's not expensive.
What is the rate as far as folks want to know how much of this mineral I should be put down on say on a food plot or our food plot trail? What was the recommended rate?
I had a food plot that was about a third of an acre, and at first I did just half of it just to see if there was a difference. And once I saw there was, then I would do the whole food plot. So I would do a third of an acre. And it did not take a whole bag. I want to say it took about a half to 3/4 of a 50-pound bag. So, whatever those numbers work out to be, that's pretty much what I used, and it worked great.
I thought it was 50 pounds initially and per acre, and then 25 as a maintenance thereafter. That's a good point. Yeah, the first time you put it on, you want to put it on about twice as heavy, and then as a maintenance application later, you're right, cut it about in half. So now,
exactly.
One of the questions I was asked about this, being a salt, why doesn't it kill the plants?
Well, I would put my mineral on before the plant would grow. I mean, I would pull it down when I seed.
Okay, you've put it down when you're seeding. I've put it down. Like right now, we got a rain come rain here, but next rain I'll put it down. But I'm only putting down 25 pounds an acre. So another question, you were talking before, and maybe you answered this question already. You said you did a half plot with the Redmond, half the plot without the Redmond, and you noticed a difference in the deer consuming the side with the Redmond?
Yes, that's right. I do have trail cam pics. I put if people know me, they know that I put my trail cameras about 10, 12 feet up in a tree. And I do like to use the Plot Watcher Pro. And that also told me that, the deer most of the time when they came out of the woods, they would gravitate over to the west side, which is where the Redmond was. So,
interesting.
That was, Here's another interesting thing too, John. Before the same year, the first year that I used it, when I put it on my plots, I also put it on a couple of stumps. Actually, I put Redmond on one stump that was just outside of a hinge cut bedding area. And I took another stump and I put on some a Lucky Buck. Now, actually, the Lucky Buck was closer to the bedding area. And I put a trail cam up, and I'm not kidding you, 4 out of 5 deer that would come out of that bedding area, they would walk by the Lucky Buck stump and go right toward the Redmond Mineral stump. 4 out of 5.
Interesting.
That was pretty cool to watch. And they were both maple stumps. They both had maple shoots coming out of the stump. And you should have seen that the Redmond Mineral stump, all the shoots were just ground right down to stubble. And on the Lucky Buck stump, there was still a lot of maple shoots that were a foot tall. They just weren't hitting it as much as the Redmond side. So that pretty much told me, but now we're in a situation in Michigan where, we can't use a mineral stump anymore anyway. So it's kind of a moot point here in Michigan.
I wonder if you could spread the mineral around on the ground like we're spreading on our plots, and those stumps and shoots would uptake the mineral.
Yeah, you mean around a tree?
Yeah, we've been logging done recently, and you can see these the shoots are everywhere, and the deer are keeping them mowed down. I wonder if you could put some of that Redmond around those stumps
as long as the Redmond Mineral would be absorbed into the ground where it's not, visible and
right. That's what I'm talking about.
The deer can't access it directly. Yeah, then you're probably fine. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So,
but you talk about minerals. There was a pretty good debate recently on it, and I stay out of these now. I don't even get involved. But what's your thought on deer minerals? What do you think? There's scientific reports, and there's everybody's got their opinion. What's your opinion on them?
Well, and I've heard a couple other guys say this as well. I have yet to see any scientific reports in black and white that prove that using mineral supplements increases antler growth. Now, I was always of the assumption that was true. Look at all the mineral companies out there that claim that putting mineral out on the property increases antler growth. It very well might, but I've not yet seen anybody come out with any substantial proof in black and white that proves it, So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, go take a look at our website. What don't you see for sale? I think that pretty much sums it up. Okay. We're probably the only food plot seed company that doesn't sell a deer mineral. Mm-hmm. And I've tried a lot of them, and I think there's some good in it. Okay, I really do. Back when we were selling it, I wanted to believe it. We used to sell Lucky Buck. We sold a couple other ones. I wanted to believe it. There's a couple of lines of thought. First off, there's guys that sell mineral and say, well, there is a science support. I've got a doctor working for me, or I've got this and I've got that. You've said there is no scientific reports. I've never seen one either. Guys want to say science, science, science. Well, okay, there's scientists out there that says there's global warming. There's scientists out there that says there's no such thing as global warming. There's scientists that say minerals for deer antlers. There's scientists that say minerals don't work for deer antlers. Scientists say Roundup's bad. Scientists say Roundup's harmless. So to me, that's all noise. Okay, that's just my opinion.
Yep.
Here's the issue I have. Two of them. One, when I used to run minerals, I would never, ever, ever see a decent buck day in, day out hitting these minerals. Okay. Day in, day out, you'd see the same does, the same fawns. Is that helping those animals? Yeah, possibly. Okay. But, 99% of the guys that are putting minerals out want to believe they're helping grow bigger antlers. Here's my question. If that buck is not hitting that mineral site every day, every other day, how is he getting that particular nutrition from that mineral?
It would be like me and you taking vitamins maybe once a week.
Right. Is it going to help?
Yeah. If you really want benefits from vitamins and minerals that we eat, you got to do it every day. You got to be consistent about it. But
right. And I just never, and we've quit running them. I just never see that. I've never seen the same deer. The other, and here's the other theory. Everybody talks about, that when the bucks go hard horn, they have a completely different summer range and fall range. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're feeding this 150-inch deer all summer long. And I think a lot of places are different. There might not be the dispersal, one place over here versus one place over there. But I've seen it many times. You watch the buck all summer, now he's gone. Or all of a sudden this buck shows up. Okay. If you're feeding this 150-inch buck or whatever all summer long and he's in your minerals and all of a sudden he up and disappears, you just did your neighbor a friend. Or, you did your neighbor a favor. There's so many variables, and well, we've tried it on pen-raised deer. Come on, that's not even, you're not even in the same zip code. You cannot compare a deer that is in the wild versus a deer that is in the pen. That's a completely genetic freak. That's not even in the same discussion. So as soon as somebody says pen deer, I'm sorry, I'm leaving the room because that's not even the same animal that we're trying to hunt. So the other thing is that whether you believe in CWD, that's one of the reasons I think 4 years ago we stopped selling it, because I talked with a biologist about it. There's so much noise out there about CWD. It's hard to believe one guy and not believe the other guy. or believe the other guy and not believe this guy. I don't even want to deal with it. I'm not going to mess with it. And we had a really good recipe. We had a great recipe that we started testing, and it was ridiculous how well it worked. But, did it grow antlers? I don't think so. When we were running it, we weren't seeing anything big. Got a lot of pictures, but I just have never seen anything that leads me to believe you're going to grow. There's so much more involved. I mean, woody browse, and food plots, and stress, and too many deer, and
winter severity, and even the length of the rut. If these bucks are still chasing does in January, they're not concentrating on giving their body a rest. And so here's a couple things that I feel may be something that, if you were able to measure it somehow, and I don't know how you would do this, but a couple things that I think could really benefit the deer by using mineral is I feel you got to get it out there in January and February. You can't put mineral out in August, and by August it's way too late. Yeah, the bucks that have been run ragged in the fall, they've got to start replenishing their body before their antlers start growing. And the sooner that they can get their body back up to snuff, then they can start putting, some of their nutrition into their antlers. And so the earlier you can get the mineral out, the better. But I think if you're going to put mineral sites out, like stumps and whatnot, I think you've got to put multiple sites out there. Just to put one or two and expect that same buck to come back every day. Because, again, like we said, I think it's consistency that they've got to get it into their diet on a regular basis in order to be able to benefit from it. The other way, I think that we can benefit deer to replenish their body right away is to get it on the food plots. Because I think if you got a few food plots that and it's going to take a lot of mineral, right? I mean, none of this stuff is going to be cheap if you're going to use it in big volume. But if you can get all your food plots treated with mineral and do it consistently every year, and these deer are able to uptake that mineral through the plants every year, you're going to probably get a much more consistent benefit from the deer feeding on it when it's in a food plot. I think to go out there in August and put it on one stump isn't really going to do anything.
No, I don't think so either. I think, like I said, you might as well throw a salt block out there, because in August, if people are putting it out, and I'm not speaking for anybody, but if you're putting it out in August, more than likely you've got a trail camera set up and you're looking for pictures, you're using it as an attractant, which is what most of that is. But, you talked about January, the buck you're giving that mineral to in January, he might be 2 miles away next fall, Right. And I think, we'd like to think we're doing good for the deer herd. I'll tell you what, you want to do good for the deer herd, I'd rather see you go buy $20 worth of chainsaw fuel than $20 worth of, the big monster buck mineral mix. That's just my opinion. I mean, everybody's got their own opinions, and one of the reasons we started this was just try to offer opinions and what we think and our experiences. And I kind of got a laugh that there's possibly a cure for EHD in one of these minerals, yet you're offering it to them in a vehicle that could cause CWD, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep, exactly.
Madison,
right.
Wisconsin Madison had a study out where they went and looked at mineral sites, and they found some. If you Google it, they found that CWD pyrin in the ground in mineral sites, and I just shake my head. I'm like, okay, we're solving one problem, but possibly, if you believe some of the science, possibly creating another problem, Mm-hmm. I don't know. I kind of shake my head at some of that, and where do you draw the line, and like I said, I think we're with a few outdoor companies that we don't even mess with them anymore, because I think there's better ways to help your, and if you're doing minerals and you're in a state that allows minerals, hey, that's great. If you think you're helping the deer herd, that's awesome. We have our own opinions. That's my opinion. And Randy's got his opinion, and there's probably 10,000 opinions on it, Randy. And
I couldn't agree with your statement more. I mean, buy $20 worth of chainsaw gas instead, and knock some trees down, give them some woody browse, let the sunlight in, and
Mhm.
create that diversity of forbs and whatnot. Because, but hey, the mineral is another shortcut. It's hitting the easy button. So, for some guys that maybe don't have the ability or the time or the the wherewithal to put trees down because maybe they don't own the property. Yeah, mineral
Right.
is an easy option. But
if that monster buck was there, day in, every night hitting it, I saw him 3 times all summer. Did he benefit from that mineral? I just,
right.
I find it hard to believe if he hit it 3 times. Did the does,
Yep.
the 6 fawns and 4 does that hit that mineral every night like clockwork? Yeah, I would tend to think it would do a little good, but keep in mind that they're in the middle of Wisconsin egg country, and there's more than they can eat surrounding them for miles. So I think it's just been blown out of proportion.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think everybody can agree that the hunting industry has been highly commercialized, and there's a lot of guys that have figured out ways to capitalize on the the avid hunter's desire to really want to put a big one on the wall, right? And so
yeah,
and whether it works or not, it sure does make a lot of sales. So
yeah. My dad and a lot of my brothers are huge golfers. And there again, buy this golf ball, you're going to get 20 more yards in your drive. Buy this, they've got a tee now that there's less resistance on the golf ball when you swing. And there's, you buy this club and you buy this, and this is good, and it's no different in the hunting industry. So you buy this and this will make big bucks, and buy this and you're going to see big bucks, and buy this, that's where hopefully, whether you agree with us or not, there's 10,000 opinions on minerals and every other thing talked about. These are just experiences, and hopefully it helps you make a better decision.
Yeah, and John, at the end of the day, I think it really comes down to, when it comes to deer hunting, you really have to understand the animal that you're hunting, and
right.
you have to be willing to admit that the deer on your property, as most people say, is the deer, are a lot different than the mature buck. And so if your goal is to shoot a mature buck, you've really got to understand what drives that thing and what motivates him to stay out of food plots during daylight hours. And once you kind of get that figured out, and you can set up your property accordingly to make it appear as though your property is not being hunted, then you're going to keep bucks on your property. You're going to keep them off your neighbor's property. You can start to grow an older age class of bucks on your property. That way, if you can keep them on your property because they don't feel they're being pressured, and trigger control on your side of the fence is something that you can control versus on the other side of the fence. So that's kind of the things I try and do with landowners all the time. And you're really going to town on providing nutrition and getting high quality seed. And yet I've yet to run into a landowner who has been disappointed after they've planted your seed. So I'm always happy to recommend it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, we try our best, and again, we go back to the failures that we've had. That was a tough week. I mean, there was a few sleepless nights and burning the phone lines between here and our suppliers, and because now I'm sitting here with on day number 3 after planting our screen, and we've got probably 500 yards of screen put in, and it's a vital part of our success in the fall. I mean, we don't have a separate, John's magic screen seed over here and everybody else gets this. No, we get an order in. I grab a bag and I put it in the corner for us, and then 500 bags get sold. And then we get our next shipment in. I throw a bag into the corner, and then those 500 bags get sold. And that's how we've done it, all the time. So what our customers are planning, that's what we're planning right now. If they're having some failures, in the back of my head, we've planted it the exact same way as we had the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm expecting, a really nice screen come October. But that's lingering in the back of your head right now, going, God, geez, I know it germ tested really good, so.
Well, hey, so it only gets 7 feet tall instead of 12 feet tall this year, right? I mean, still, it's going to be a good screen. So
as long as it's 7 feet tall when it matters. I don't care what it is in July, August, I care less. But
Exactly.
when November rolls around, we're still looking for that 7 to 8 feet tall screen. I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah,
Yep.
so we're in the middle of planting now. We're still going to run some soil builder, as soon as the rain stops here, and I think we're going to be done planting for the summer. And the next thing you know, 1 month from now, we'll be dropping our first batch of sweet peas in the ground. And
So has it stopped raining over there by you right now?
I can hear a light sprinkle. So
Okay. Well, unfortunately, John, you got more coming, because I'm about 125 miles west of you over here by Wausau, and it's raining here and it's headed your way. So sorry about that.
Oh, you're in Wisconsin tonight?
Yeah, I'm visiting a client property over here by Wausau. So that's why I said, normally we're both on opposite sides of the lake, but tonight I'm even west of you yet. But
yeah,
don't have any time to stop by on my way home, because I'm heading back south again around the bottom of the lake. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, safe travels, and I'm sure we'll talk within a week or two.
All right, John. Hey, have a good 4th of July, and we'll be in touch next time.
Sounds good. We're looking forward to taking some time off, and then the July rush will be on.
You bet. All right. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Randy. Take care.
See ya. Yeah. Bye.